Hello, I'm Liz, one of Derry's reference librarians, and welcome to another episode of Misinformation Busters. Once a week, we tackle a rumor or a false or misunderstood story, and we try to separate fact from fiction. This week, I'm doing something a little different. A review of the recent book, The Storm is Upon Us, How QAnon Became a Movement, Cult, and Conspiracy Theory of Everything. So, what's the story? Well, if you've been watching my videos, you should know what QAnon is and my weird fascination with it. But if you aren't familiar, this conspiracy began in 2017 on 4chan when an anonymous poster called Q Clarence Patriot said that military intelligence was helping then-President Trump fight the deep state. Oh, and that the deep state was made up of, and actually the world is controlled by, a cabal of satanic blood-drinking child abusers. Totes normal stuff. Why am I fascinated with this? I don't know. It's interesting to watch a conspiracy grow in real time. And it grew a lot during the pandemic, and now it's been in the news. A number of believers were at the Capitol on January 6th, and it's no longer spreading on the deeper ends of the internet. It's spreading on Facebook groups. In fact, you might know someone who believes it. I mean, if you've seen someone say or share Where We Go One, We Go All, or Save the Children, Save Our Children, you've encountered a QAnon, or Q-adjacent, believer. And this book attempts to make sense of this. So, what's the verdict? I liked this book and would recommend it. There wasn't a lot in here that was new for me, but all in all, I think the author, Mike Rothschild, provides a good overview of this conspiracy and a timeline of events, and that's what it's meant to be. It's a good read for anyone who is looking to learn more about this because they heard it on the news or because their neighbor won't stop sharing weird statuses online. What I really appreciated about this was that Rothschild doesn't even bother debunking too much. I mean, he does. There is a chapter called Debunking QAnon and Its Prophecies, but the book starts with the premise that this conspiracy is false and ridiculous. Most people who are seeking out this book know that it's ridiculous and that these claims don't add up, so I appreciate that he didn't even attempt to entertain said claims. The other aspect I appreciated was the chapters on the roots of QAnon. I've said before that blood libel, which is an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, is a huge part of QAnon, and this goes more in depth. This also extends to when Rothschild discusses the Save Our Children craze of last summer. It all goes back to this idea that evil people, who are usually depicted with anti-Semitic language or imagery, are going to steal your children and abuse them in gruesome ways, and that this really goes back to when Christians would demonize Jewish people by making these claims and making the people they perceived as enemies just irredeemable. When Rothschild talks about these roots, he ties it into the plan and the hope for a great awakening, and the fact that the end game for this is military tribunals and mass executions for the supposed enemies. QAnon has a very violent ideology, and I don't think that gets covered enough when it's talked about by, say, like ABC News. And it should be highlighted more, and I appreciate that this author does that. And really, as you can gather, it's not a happy read. Rothschild interviews people who have lost friends and family to QAnon and covers people who went to violent ends thanks to their obsession, including Ashley Babbitt, who died at the Capitol on January 6th. This shows that this isn't just a harmless conspiracy theory. When people think about QAnon and conspiracy theories, they tend to think of people who just spend all their time in the internet. They don't think about people acting on it like Ashley Babbitt or the man who shot up Comet Pete's in D.C. Rothschild does include people who did get sucked in and then got themselves out as a good balance to show that there is hope, and he does include a chapter in the end on how to help someone who wants to get out. But overall, the book leaves you with the feeling that we are going to be dealing with this conspiracy theory and the followers for a while, and that's not a great thing. Any negatives? Well, I did notice one small error. When discussing Alpalus Slyman, the man who led police on a chase through Massachusetts and New Hampshire, it says that it took place in Rockingham County, New Jersey, instead of New Hampshire. If this gets another printing, it will likely be fixed, and if you look at the story and the notes in the back, all of the other details are accurate, and he cites reliable sources. Still, I am really shocked that an editor did not catch that. Also, as I mentioned earlier, this is kind of an overview, so there's no super deep dive into one aspect of this conspiracy theory. I wish that more time was spent on how QAnon seems to absorb anything into the conspiracy. There are people who think Anthony Bourdain's suicide was a part of this. If you want to know why, he apparently knew about everything and was going to expose the cabal. No, I'm not kidding. Anyway, I would have liked to have seen that discussed a little bit more, but don't know if that's really what Rothschild was going for. However, if you would like a deep dive, I can recommend the podcast QAnon Anonymous, which is a Q critical and debunking podcast, and they will often devote 50 to 90 minutes on one subtopic. So, small quibbles aside, this book is worth reading. It's a good primer on how we got here and the fallout so far. We're probably going to be seeing this for a while, so best to learn what it is and how to deal with it. And hey, Derry has a copy. Thank you for watching, and when in doubt, ask a librarian.